Hello and welcome everyone to this conversation and this room. I'd like to request everyone who's here to feel free to switch on their videos because we are hoping for this to be a conversation and to be a dialogue. And I'm going to just start us off by asking Shipra a couple of questions, but then we will open it out and hope that all of you have some questions for her. And this video is this call is being recorded so that it can be shared with people who are in other rooms right now. Okay, so without much further ado, I'm going to dive into my first question. Thank you so much for such an inspiring and very, very concise introduction in the earlier call. And I think it gives and welcome to this space. And it gave us a nice and concise idea of the problem at large. And I was wondering if you could maybe shed some light on your educational journey as well as like your journey generally in the sustainability space outside of conventional education that helped you get to where you are at in the space.
Right. So if I understand, your first question is about my sort of more conventional education. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Great. Firstly, hello everyone. Good evening. Big warm welcome. Thank you for joining us in this chota sa room. And yes, if you feel comfortable, please turn your videos on. It would be lovely to see all your lovely faces and speak to you. Um, so to answer Ishta's question, my education has been quite conventional. I have of course like started my 10th grade, gone to 11th and 12th, and then done a degree which I always sort of cover my face whenever I say it. I did a bachelor's in business management, and I did that because I thought ki yeah, there are so many problems in this world. Money is one way to solve them. I will learn business management, I will set up my business, and I will return all profits to charity. So at the age of 15, that was what I thought, and that's what I went with. But of course, when I went in there, reality struck, and then after a master's in business management, I worked for 2 years, and then went on to do something called a master's in development, which was a very new course being offered at that time in that university, at Azim Premji University in Bangalore, and I did that for 2 years, and that was the first time I held. It felt like an education is helping me grow my mind. Mujhe, like I could feel that my brain was growing and exercising. So that was a very rewarding time. Those 2 years were great. And in Ishta, your second question was what have been my sort of learning journeys outside of conventional education, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think there have been several, but mostly if I have to categorize them, they have been in terms of projects, they have been people, and they have been experiences. Let me sort of break all three down a little bit. When it comes to projects, it's about like taking up mini projects, right? So a few years ago, I saw someone offering like a small workshop on how to make your own sustainable like, body care products. So went in, tried a lot of that. I'm at a stage where I know how to make a bunch of things, but I also know my limits. I know like as to how much time I can give to do each thing. So I outsource some things and I don't get something, but that has taught me the skill of making a few things. So that became like a pet project or like a mini project for some time. Like I shared in the earlier introductory session, we did a bunch of friends and the peers got together and we did that project at university where we tried to set up a waste management system. I think I learned so much outside the classroom. Of course, I learned a lot inside the classroom as well. A rare case, I think, in my education experience. But at the same time, बहुत सीखा outside the classroom. So I feel like just taking up small personal projects of an area of interest and curating that by them by myself and working with others to do that has been fantastic. Some examples also include where I used to live earlier. It's an apartment building, and most of my family live in that apartment building. But we set up a composting system, a composting unit. So right now, 8 families food waste is being segregated and is being turned into compost, which is being picked up by people. A lot of people have started doing terrace gardening as well, and at the same place, and it's also being picked up by a friend to give to his organic farm. um, so um, so a lot of the bachas who are in the building are seeing ki अरे खाद बन सकती है ये कचरे से. So kachra doesn't isn't kachra anymore, right? It is gold. It can so they're seeing the circle of life in front of their eyes, which are things that we used to feel that we won't see, right, after our generation or after our mom and dad's generation, parents generation. So yeah, I think one is of course doing projects. Second is just, I think, really building relationships with people. There's so many people we find on our journey. uh, I've been a part of Manita and I were just discussing the LSUC is a such a fantastic forum to meet people. Uh, I was a part of something called the Jam, which is essentially a lot of people coming together, jamming for a week, bearing their hearts, souls, and minds and bodies out there, and really working with each other. So I found those to be really rich and inspiring. I have done a couple of I've done sort of two sessions with Theatre of the Oppressed by CCDC, which is Community for Center Change and Dialogue, based in Bangalore. Um, a duo which is Radha and Ravi take this up and do this with a lot of people, and I felt like that really made me think very deeply. It also led me uh, to a very significant personal space in my journey where I was prompted to go propose to my partner because of that entire experience. So it has had like really amazing personal and professional positive repercussions. And I think generally in experiences uh, which is I think every time we face resistance, every time we face something that's not going our way, I think it can be really frustrating. And it's easy for me to say this now, but if I was in a frustrating place, I would be in my own like shell and thinking about it. But I think there is opportunity on the other side. So yeah, I think experiences are also such a massive um, sort of turning point to so many things. I remember being a part of a Teach for India retreat in Ahmedabad where they took us to a slum and they asked us to do three different things. I chose to stay with a family, and I remember staying there overnight and being woken up at 5 or 4 a.m. saying, Didi, chalo. So I'm like, Kaha chalo? They're like, Karne. And I'm like, what? And they're like, Karne. And I'm like, Kaha? Karne, यहाँ पे bathroom नहीं है. I was like, cool, I'm not going. आप जाओ, आपको तो जाना है, मैं नहीं जाने वाली. And the entire day, I literally held my shit together and also kept thinking, what do people do when they menstruate? What do people do when they have loose motions? I just couldn't fathom my head around it. And I think in so many ways that really shifted my attention to understanding what vulnerable communities have to go through every day. And I don't have to live it. I don't even understand it. I just know about it. um, so I think, yeah, I think someone has said this very beautiful thing. Uh, Connecting the dots is a great thing, but I think collecting the dots is what if we focus on, and seeing opportunity in sort of every experience that we have. I think that's what sort of leads to a lot of things.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. And yeah, I think it is so much about also what happens outside the classroom and in real life experience that helps us understand what we're really dealing with at a systemic level in terms of the problem we're trying to solve. And just picking up from what you said about resistance is where we learn. Um, you've given us a very concise and succinct overview of the problem at hand. And I would be curious to know some challenges that you may have experienced, whether they're internal challenges of having to go past certain hurdles um, or certain forms of conditioning, or whether there are some external challenges of lack of financial support or lack of the right community. What may be some of the challenges that you have faced getting to where you're at? Um,
Right. Um, I feel like I come from a fairly privileged background. I am someone who's born into a middle class and now upper middle class family. Um, so that's of course one privilege. I have been schooled in a in an English education. I have been my parents have paid my fees for all my education till now. So I think top 10-20% right of the country. That's who I am. And having said that, I have had a few situations that I consider as challenges. One is that I think for almost everyone in the development sector, right, I didn't have a template when I started out. It is like entering into a dark room and figuring your way out and like touching, feeling things, and then understanding ki, okay, this is where I want to go. So no template, and then understanding what works for me and what doesn't, because I came from a system where everything was fed to me, right? कि अच्छा ऐसे करना है, ये करना है तो आपको वो करना है, आपको डिजाइनर बनना है तो आपको ये करना पड़ेगा. बट अगर आपको डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर प्रोफेशनल बनना है, देयर इज नो टेम्पलेट एट ऑल, राइट? और if you just want to do work that you love, right? That. And then I also recall having a massive disagreement with my father, and both my parents are lovely human beings in their own right. They've really supported me. But I remember being really passionate about sanitation and him telling me really frustrated one day that no one is going to speak to you after listening to your work after 5 minutes. They will turn their face and go away. And no one be interested in your work. And that really hurt. I remember being very, very disturbed, upset over the next few days. But like slowly he came around, and now I think he takes a lot of pride in the work that we do. Although I do think my parents still worry about um, things like, "Arey, why is she doing such tough work?" But I guess it's the job of a parent to do that. But I think like personal sort of resistance sometimes helps, but otherwise I've had a very fairly um, sort of supportive environment. And I think one of the most sort of challenging things that have come is my relationship with money. I have always thought that I have to be financially independent, and I have struggled and measured my worth with money a lot. And only now am I in a space where I'm like, because sustainability is so beautiful, it teaches us to make peace with the things that we have, right? And jo typical Indian middle class, or like typical Indian mentality of saving, of frugality, of, let me just say it, conjuiceness. And I come from a Banya family, so I think it is at heightened levels, right? You can't even waste one spoon of dal in the topia. You have to finish everything. So I think all of those small things really sort of helped me understand what I value and what's really important to me. So I haven't probably I think I have enough clothes to last me for a decade. I don't want to buy new clothes for a long time. बहुत कपड़े हैं मेरे पास, and I don't want the latest electronic gadget, except that I'm that like ask friends and family, अरे आपके पास ये पुराना वाला phone है क्या, or things like that. And I've recently gotten decently functioning electronic devices, so I don't think I need anything for the next 4-5 years. So I think just frugality has really helped prioritize what I need. The thing that I spend the most on is food, which is getting good quality organic food. Although I get reactions from my aunts like, "क्या तूर दाल 50 रुपए किलो? मैं तो 25 रुपए में खरीदती हूँ." So like I'm like, so the thing is, I get it from an organic farm where I'm supporting farmers. I get it unpackaged. Those things are really important for me, right? So and I have these discussions with my partner, and he's like, we're okay, we're spending on food, right? It's something we're eating every day. So what I'm trying to say is my relationship with money was also complex because I aspired to be a certain way. I mean, for heaven's sake, I went to a business management college where I saw people having fancy phones and like wearing the top blazers and all of that. So that did set in a lot early in life, and it took a lot of unlearning to understand what works and what doesn't. I do have some notions in my head which I'm okay with. I want financial stability. I want to slowly build like a place where I don't have to go and ask someone for money. That's important for me. But as long as I'm able to do that and survive and not have a hand to mouth existence, I'm okay. If I'm able to buy gifts because I love expressing my love to my close ones through gifting. If I'm able to do that, I'm happy. But yeah, I think money has been a struggle, has been a point of challenge. It comes up now and then.
Yeah. Um, and again, it I think does come up as a big question in this a livelihood space specifically, because we're talking about finding work that makes us happy, that fulfills us, that also sustains the planet. But then the question is, will it sustain us? Can we make enough money doing something we love? What if what we love doing doesn't have as big a market and things like this? So it would be lovely to know from you if your a livelihood that you've chosen is sustaining you and if you manage to reach where you want to be at, like you're saying, in terms of there's a particular lifestyle that you need to and choose to live, and whether your livelihood is doing that for you, or if there are other kinds of sources of income that you need to seek. um,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Thank you for that very honest question, and I'm going to try and give as honest an answer that I can. Yes, my livelihood right now supports me in the lifestyle that I'm choosing to lead, which is, I think, a fairly expensive one, considering I stay in Bangalore, which is a metro city, and I'm staying in a sort of privileged part of town and paying rent and those things. Um, but yeah, I don't have to look for other sources of income as of now. I also forgot to mention that I also come from a space where I don't have to financially support anyone else. I'm only looking after myself. So that also plays a massive, massive role in understanding where I am. I also thought that before the pandemic, I was earning more than I needed. I think I could have done with a bit of a like lesser amount, but yeah, I that is something that um, that I am where I am right now. And the aspiration, even from an a livelihood point of view, I don't think I'm at a place where I'm doing exactly what I want to do. What I want to do more is work with children on sustainability and just marry those two concepts with art. That's my dream. But I think that these are stepping stones to doing it, and as long as I'm learning and understanding what I can do for that larger dream, I think I'm good, because I don't believe all things will come together at one point of time and only then I'll be happy. Um, I think the idea is to seek happiness where I am at this point right now.
Thank you. Thank you for your very honest answer. Um, I'm going to ask Shipra a couple of more questions, but after that, we will be opening it up to any questions that any of you may have. So do write them out in the chat if you like, or think of the questions that are coming up for you. Um, and so another question I wanted to ask you was, we spoke a little bit about challenges, the idea of like walking into a space, feeling like you're actually navigating a dark room. Um, and one big aspect of that is then what kind of support has helped you get through that. And I'm wondering what the role of communities and possibly mentors may have been in navigating that dark room. Uh,
Right. Thank you. And that's a again such a beautiful question. I think community has played such a large role, and I just don't mean like my sort of family that I'm related to by birth, right? I think um, again, Manat and I were discussing, there is like we both are former TFI alums. Sorry, Manat, if I have just mentioned that without your permission. So that community has been great, and I mean by community, the people that I met and made through that community has been really supportive. The Azim Premji University community has been extremely supportive and so inspiring. They've done some fantastic work with Swan for the migrant labor crisis during the pandemic. Friends from Oroville, the JAM community, I think connections also made at LSUC, hopefully connections made through Alivelihoods as well, fingers crossed, right? I think, and all the workspaces that I've been a part of, they have just really contributed. Even the TO, the Theatre of the Oppressed community as well. I think the idea is to understand that I know that my learning will never reach a point where I'll be satisfied, and I want to always be there. I never want to be okay with, acha, now I think I know enough. Now I don't need to do more stuff. I think the idea is to just keep doing, keep understanding, keep looking at different points of view. And I think because it's so difficult at this political and environmental standpoint at the juncture that we are at, it's really hard, it's really painful, and I think we all need the kind of support that we can get.
And
I don't know if I fully answered your question. I'm sorry. I think I digressed.
no, I think you did completely. Um, and it does bring up another question for me, which is I think for a lot of people entering work, whether it's a livelihood or whether it's something that maybe isn't a livelihood yet, I think one thing that is spoken about a lot is this role and need for mentorship and having mentors. And it would be great to hear from you either a little bit about maybe one or two mentors who may have been in your life, as
Right,
well as get a sense of how does one seek out mentors when entering a new space.
right, right. Thank you for asking that question. I feel like I have not had a constant mentor all my life, but very strangely, and this is not to alienate any gender, I have found women to be women in this field to be um, like a magnet for me to go look up to, reach out and understand more. So Kathy and Yesamine, who are the co-founders at ecofem, are dear friends, but also ladies that I look up to so much, the way they navigate and have really formed a social enterprise. My current employee slash boss, Divya, who is the founder at Scrap, I find her to be also such a great sort of source of inspiration. In fact, now I know that in पे मैं mentor का label I have चिपका हुआ है, so I know that I'm going to go back to them a lot. But I do feel like there's a bit of a void over there that I don't know if I want to fill and have one constant person. But I also think that role can be transient. It doesn't have to be just one person, but like I would love to handhold and help someone if someone's just started their journey, right? If they are and if they think that I could be a useful mentor, happy to do that, because I feel like it's such a tender, young, vulnerable space to be in, and we need to give all the support that we can.
Thank you so much for the gracious offer. And everybody in this room knows then that if this is a space they're wanting to enter, you have someone there, which is really, I think, the best one can get when entering a new space. And there are some questions that are
Yes.
starting to come up.
Yes.
And maybe if you wanted to unmute yourself, so we can just go in order. Naveen Thomas has asked a question. Did you want to maybe unmute and read out your question or explain it? Or
I don't know if I missed the Shipra. If I haven't, could you tell us a bit more of what you do in this space? I got the thing about making uh, uh, so, soaps, was it solutions, something you mentioned earlier?
Right.
Uh,
Sure. Naveen, thank you for your question. I do that in my personal life, but professionally, happy to explain a little more. What we do is at Scrap is that we work with in majorly 3 to 4 areas. One is we work with offices, so office spaces in Mumbai and Bangalore. We work with them, handhold them, and help them move to a zero waste office space. So when I say zero waste, I just want to break down that term a little bit, right? When I say zero waste, it doesn't mean कि कचरा होता ही नहीं है. It is about what happens with that waste. So one is it is sorted, it is segregated. So having a system at source is really important. And just like how a computer has hardware and software, we believe that behavior change also needs to have hardware and software, which means that behavior change needs to have behavior change around waste segregation, for example, needs to have a segregation station, but it also needs to have positive, engaging workshops, posters, nudges, competitions, gamifications around these things. So we help offices adopt sustainability and zero waste practices, be it water saving measures, waste management measures. We've helped an office have a lot of their decor from just completely upcycled stuff, using upcycled pine wood, Tetra Pak furniture, like upcycled Tetra Pak furniture, using glass that was going to be thrown away, but taking that glass, getting it cut and using it for their office, things like that. We also help offices. We've helped an office consistently for over 6 months just before the pandemic. Have their excess food to be picked up by an NGO and given to underprivileged communities. All of that would just get thrown away. And food waste is such a massive, massive and sad problem. So we do that with offices, Naveen. And what we also do is what we also do is we work with large events. So I'm just going to share a few names, and the intention is not to name drop but talk about the scale. So we've worked with NH7 Pune in Meghalaya, where we have almost 60,000 people coming over a course of 3 days. It is massive, like pagalpanti hai, but it's a lot of work, but it's amazing. We worked at events in the ghats of Banaras, where we are taking Varanasi, where we are taking waste and going in a boat and then giving it to a recycling or a collection facility. We've worked in a desert in Rajasthan as well, where there is patriarchy and there is casteism, and people don't want to touch waste if they're from a certain caste. Ye hamara kaam nahi hai. Don't know how to take instructions from a woman. So we worked with events, and we also do workshops with people, like going to physical spaces and doing workshops, and mostly doing paid workshops unless it's a vulnerable community, or doing it with doing that with sorry doing this online as well ever since the pandemic hit. So we've been doing a lot of public workshops on different topics, and also helping brands become sustainable. So I think the idea is that there are so many things out there. How do we bring it together in a way where it gets easy and accessible? Because a lot of people just don't have the time to bring it all together. They have the intent, but oh, that time is not there to bring it all together. So yeah.
Thanks, Shipra.
Next in the questions, Nishant has written a question, though I do feel like you've kind of touched upon this. So Nishant, did you want to, Nishit had written, how do we apply what we know about zero waste? So I feel like you started to touch upon it. Nishit, did you want to say anything more about your question?
Yes, please elaborate if that would be okay.
So basically, what I am trying to understand is, okay, having to do this on a larger scale with companies, organizations, maybe that will take a process or a procedure or a protocol. All right, we know about that, and since you've been doing it, you already know how to do it. But what happens is, at a very grassroots level, when it comes to an individual who buys, dosa and idli on an everyday basis from the bundis and all that, it becomes very difficult to kind of have resources available, because I personally go through that every morning when I have to buy some idli or vada or anything. I have that packet of chutney or a sambar that I am taking in that plastic that I know is not going to be used again, and at that time I cannot do anything but feel guilty about what happened. And this
Right.
is happening on an everyday basis, so I as an individual am feeling like it will make a difference if 30 packets on the month end, if I am not using 30 packets, like 30 chutney packets, it will make a difference, but I am hardly doing anything about it.
Right, right. Nishat, is that how you pronounce your name? Could you please?
Nishat, it is Nishat, though this is actually Riti here. Nishat, I'm using Nishat's ID, she was also
Okay,
here, but I am
okay.
talking, I am Riti.
Okay, Riddhi, and if Nishat, if you're there.
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you for that question. So very quickly to just say that I lead something that I call a minimal waste lifestyle. In a
Mm-hmm.
year, I discard 1 bag of waste. Uh,
Really?
Yeah, but Nishat, it's possible. I mean, Riddhi, it's possible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not too difficult, and I'll just
Yeah.
explain how.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing is, most of us at Scrap do this. So what
Mm-hmm.
we do is step number one is we segregate our waste. We segregate our waste into 3 to 4 categories. First
Okay.
category is our dry waste or recyclable waste, in which
Okay.
paper, plastic, glass, bottle, cardboard, all of that goes into that, right?
Right.
The second is our food waste. So जो खाने का कचरा है,
Hmm.
which is anything that comes from the kitchen. So vegetable
Hmm.
peels, fruit peels, chai
Hmm.
ka powder, coffee powder.
Hmm.
I see lovely, I see a big lovely smile from Manita and Bhavani, and of course
Hmm.
I'm sure they have a lot to say as well.
Right.
Right, I take all of that and I compost it at home. Right,
Yes.
in a composter. If you can't compost, we can talk about that later, but that I've found to be a really powerful step. Step number The third category is to categorize into something called e-waste, which is all your batteries, bulbs. That should not go into dry waste, because e-waste is quite complex and it has a lot of matter that a lot of unauthorized recyclers in India are breaking, taking apart, and burning also, unfortunately. So very good to have that separate. And the last is your reject waste category. Reject waste माने waste इसका कुछ नहीं हो सकता, which means it is our sanitary pads, it's our diapers, it's our band-aid, it is used condoms, right? So we should try and minimize that as much as we can. So you can minimize your menstrual waste by using cloth pads and menstrual cups, or period underwear. And there are also dust sweepings, especially if you're living in a city, because जहाँ पे बहुत construction होता है और paint is chipping off. Good to also have that. So my bag consists of just those dust sweepings. Now that's step number one, which is to segregate. Step number two is to compost your food waste. And you will see that takes a massive burden off it. I can give you an example. I was living before I got married to my partner. I was living in a joint family. We are 13 of us who live in small separate houses. So 6 of us were in one place, and we started composting our waste, right? And instead of sending one bag every day, we started sending out one bag every 10 days. And my parents were like, that's amazing. And then slowly we started sending the dry waste to a recycler, and to specifically a dry waste collection center. So all the plastics, all of that, all like stuff like metal foils, glass bottles, all that started going to the dry waste recycler. And then we were left with very little waste. And that's how anyone can go from like discarding a bag every day to discarding one bag every 6 months or 2 months or 3 months. You do you, right? आप अपना journey खुद करो, but starting with this is just like, that's all it takes. It just takes to start segregating your waste. I hope that answers your question, but sorry, I think the second part to this as well. After managing your waste, it is about reducing your waste, right? So whenever I step out, what I do is I always have a bottle in my bag. I have a chota sa dabba in my bag, and I have a spoon in my bag. These three things are always there. So that and of course a cloth bag that folds up into a small space. So because of these three things, if I have a chips craving, and Bangalore, we are really lucky. Bas bahar jao, dabba kholo, and chips. You can just take chips from Hot Chips and pack it and get it back. Same with idli, sambar, vada, and all of chutney and all of that. But what I'm trying to say is guilt. Please don't guilt yourself into like feeling bad about this. Do whatever is accessible, because in North India, something will be accessible that's not accessible in South India. Gujarat में कुछ होगा जहाँ पे West Bengal में नहीं होगा, right? So pick and choose your battles, because if we try and be perfect at everything, we are just going to get really overwhelmed and feel like this is not worth it. But it is. So do what makes you happy and what is comfortable to you, and then slowly inch towards like discomfort.
Uh, yeah, it does answer what I was looking for. And probably, like you're saying, if you don't guilt trip yourself, you actually will get to do some work, because now when you're saying it, it is actually like, हाँ, actually सिर्फ इतना ही है, इतना ज़्यादा नहीं है, इतना worry करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है हमें. We just have to look at what small steps you can take, and I
Yeah.
think you're good to go. With composting, I think we've already started, because we like there is a family here who stays. There are about 6 people who stay in one house, and then we have a watchman family who are 5. Then there are other 3 people. So like this, there are about 20 people, and all that waste that is collected in the kitchen, that is being cooked or whatever, is composted for the garden and everything, and we actually use it. So with composting, we're kind of taken care of. But with the segregation, and I think less use of one-time plastic with bottles and box carrying and all that, I think it will make a difference. So
Yeah,
yes, yes.
100%. And agar I just want to share that I recently found a batter shop near my house where that I can just go and get my own batter. And
Mm.
in that process that I hadn't found it, I started learning how to make my own batter. And I fully understand that a lot of people don't have that. घर पे किसी की मिक्सी नहीं है, घर like उड़द दाल नहीं मिलती, and all of those things, right? Small things may or may not work, but if you start talking to people about it, if you ask your neighbor, if you say that, you know what, I'm looking for this, people keep it in their mind and then go back to like pinging you. So for example, a place called Kupai, which means waste in Tamil, in Coimbatore, is collecting undergarments for upcycling to make it into carpet um, shredding. And so I'm actually contacting all friends and family who have shown interest and telling them that यार अपनी चड्डी बनियान ब्रा मुझे दे दो, I'm going to go courier this. And such an odd message to send to everyone, but the fact is, the more we talk about it, the more people will come together as a community to support this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Riddhi, for your question, and Shipra for inspiring us to actually take action ourselves and not wait for something larger to happen and to change our lives. I'd like to invite Pragya to ask her question. Would you like to unmute and ask?
Yeah. Thank you.
And maybe after that, Visesh as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Shipra, I think hearing you, it was like pieces were part of my journey. And I felt so hopeful कि, you know, है कुछ आगे जाके hope. My trouble is, I think 4 years back, waste was started to trouble me, and then through a lot of, you know, journeys and meeting people and a lot of things, I'm now leading a zero waste lifestyle. I compost, I don't buy stuff, I do DIY of my existing clothes. I mean, like all of that you said, I make eco bricks, bioenzymes, especially lockdown, and lockdown in the past 1 year, it sort of accelerated. But I have not been able to, you know, work with an organization yet. I think 2 years back, I was like headstrong about starting my own thing. That did not sort of succeed. I was in Bangalore. And but during that time I experimented and like tested like 100 soaps on my body, and you know, realized okay, the bathing powder that I can create at home is the best thing to do and whatnot. So it was a learning, but even today I don't know, I keep getting confused कि यार अभी भी अपना own initiative launch करूं या जाके किसी organization के साथ काम करूं, because when I'm hearing livelihoods or whatever, every minute I'm like, yaar, I don't want to waste this day. I mean, I'm doing a lot on a personal level. I also created a group in my society, so I'm enabling a lot of women do home gardening, composting. But you know, it's that restlessness is like increasing by the day, and I really want to, I mean, sort of you know, dedicate my time to this. And I think a direct question would be that, do you have people, are you guys like, you guys are looking for like-minded people at Scrap, or what do you suggest? You know, do I go and volunteer at a farm? Because I just cannot stay, you know, I cannot stay with this anymore.
I think it's lovely that you're so open and you're asking this, and that you're so restless. I think like kudos to your restlessness. I really hope it translates. Pragya, I don't have an answer to you because I think you have to find your own answer. But what I do want to say is that at Scrap right now, we don't have openings because of you know what's going on in the world. So we have been quite affected. I'm going to be honest. But what I do want to say is that personally for me, I have also really struggled to find an organization that values me, values my time, and values it meaningfully, right? I don't think the development sector is a very sorted space. It still has a lot that needs to be done right. Um, um, but I do think that if you've not had experience in a professional organization, I think there's a lot of professional organization working in the area of waste or environmental sustainability. I think there's a lot of value in going forward as an intern or as a volunteer or even as a part-time full-time employee, going, learning, and then understanding where you want to do it, because that specific area of waste is also really large. There are lots of people doing lots of things, so finding that niche that really clicks is something I think that's very location specific as well, if I'm making sense. So say for example, if I am in outskirts of a city, I have to see what can marry my interests plus what the local space needs, and plus the skills that I have, right? Only if I can combine those three things will I start something of my own. But what I've really realized is working at different spaces has given me different perspectives, which at some point will help me go forward and start something. But I'm going to be honest, at 23, I wanted to be a social entrepreneur, and I was going to do a course also on being a social entrepreneur. But I think at this point in time, I'm happy working for someone who really values my work.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the impact that you want to create is happening,
Yes.
either working with someone or creating your own thing.
Yeah. आपने ही बोल दिया.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Shipra.
I honestly don't know if I've helped in any way or added value in any way, but really
Uh,
happy to connect later as well, Pragya.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I honestly, when I asked the question, I myself knew there's no concrete answer to this, but still in the dark room, probably looking
Yeah.
for some light. So yeah, I
Light.
think you
Yeah.
give me some light. So yeah, thank you.
Inshallah, I hope you find it soon.
Thank
Okay, thank you for this. Over to Vishesh to ask a question.
Okay, so I lately have like been educating myself about all this. This lockdown has given all of us the chance to, just think about, rethink how you're leading your life. And like every day is like a learning process about how to lead a conscious lifestyle and reducing your waste and all of that. But I actually want to know from you, how did you go about this whole process where you're learning but you're also educating people around you about all this? And how do you spread that awareness amongst people who are actually very reluctant as well? Because I personally face that.
Right. Um, so I think your question one is, how do you learn and still do work?
Yeah,
And the
like how
second,
do you keep learning and implementing it as well, because it can seem like a lot. I mean, I think you kind of answered it in the first time when you spoke about starting with composting and separating your waste. So I think that's kind of answered. But how do you go around educating people and making people aware of this, and especially people who are very reluctant to learn these new things?
right. I think that's a fantastic question, Vishesh. Thank you for asking that. So, one is, yes, it is overwhelming because I feel like the more I do courses, I recently did a course from CSE, which is Center for Science and Environment, on just environment education. Sorry. And there was so much information. It really it was great to know that information, but it really took like some spirit away, because I'm like, I don't know if we've crossed a point of no return, right? But i think that uh, I think that while that overwhelmingness is there, for me personally, working with people brings it all together like nothing else can. Like even chatting with all of you right now, just I'm like, yeah, 30 people in this room are interested to work on the environment. That's a massive win out of that 120, which means one third. It's great. So what I'm trying to say is, that hope of light can be different for different people, but for of one thing I'm sure is that change making is a difficult process, but it is so rewarding in the long term. Even something as simple as, I started my career as a teacher, right? And I recently got a call from one of my students. We call them children, our children. But he called and he said, I dropped out of school later after you left, but I remember what you told me, and you know what, I really want to start learning again. I want to complete 10th standard. Can you help? And I was mind blown. This was 8 to 10 years ago, like working with that child. And I'm so sure I remember picking up the phone and telling the team that, hey, I just got this call, and I know that our work many years down the line, we will get such sort of reactions, and that, hey, you know what, you spoke to me that day and this is what I'm doing. Hey, you did this workshop and that's what I'm doing. Hey, you came and segregated waste at this event and that's what I'm doing. Hey, you spoke at my office. So I feel like people is where the energy is at. And for me, more than anything else, children is where the energy is at. That's where I feel really hopeful. I remember the second standard kid telling me about North Pacific Gyre. I'm like, मुझे तो Gyre pronounce करना नहीं आता था a month ago, and this child is telling me all of this, right? It was incredible. So I think we all have our sources of finding hope. For me, it is people. I think I feed off that energy. And the second thing is about what to do about reluctant people, right? I think it is to just let them be. You do your own thing. You please do whatever you have to. I can give you an example. I remember this neighbor of ours who said we were organizing a New Year's party on the terrace, and my mom was taking steel plates. She told my mother, "अरे भाभी आप why are you not taking disposable plates?" And my mother is like, "तुम्हें पता है ना मेरी बेटी कैसी? You know how my daughter is." She looks at me and she's like, तुम्हारी life बहुत difficult होगी. Your life will be very difficult. And I was like, oh, thanks, I guess. And few years down the line, she attended my partner and my wedding, which was a year ago, and we tried to make it a zero waste wedding, and I could see that she was stunned, right? Like it was a totally different experience. So the idea is to not give it back, or the idea is to not try and get a buy-in or an influence. The idea is to just very quietly just do what you want. Focus on the other people who are really interested. So I'm really happy to be in this room of 40 people who are intrigued by this concept of sustainability and waste, and have so much heart and effort. And I think just focusing on that makes so much sense.
Your sound went weird.
Same time that focusing on that definitely affects.
It's breaking off. Something's gone wrong with the mic, it seems.
You sound robotic.
Yeah. Can you say something?
Is that better?
I thought it was me, and then I saw every face on the screen.
Take your speaker off and reconnect it.
What, are you using any external speaker or earphones or something? Because it just suddenly happened. So
Is it even now?
yeah,
No.
it's still the same.
Shall I even come back?
Okay.
Sure. I enjoyed watching every face on the screen slowly turn to, is it just me or is it her?
No, I thought like it was echoing from my computer. So I put myself on mute, and then I realized that it was happening on its own.
Yeah.
She's back. So I think, let's see.
I hope I'm not a robot now.
Hey, you're fine now. Yes.
Okay. I'm missing out on the entertainment though, damn it.
We'll show you the part of the recording, because all of us suddenly were like, what happened?
Okay, that's really funny. I'm sorry, I just lost everyone's chat over there. I think a couple of folks, I think Anip had a very interesting question. Why did I mention Banya? All of that. So yeah, happy to. But Ishta, if you want to go forward with the questions, please go ahead.
Okay. If you wanted to talk about, there were two other questions I was going to go.
Please.
But okay,
Yeah.
so we can go there, and then you can answer the Banya question last. Okay, so the next one I want to ask Bhavani if she wanted to ask her question. On Bhavani, you asked something about families and talking to families. Did you want to?
Yeah, because I'm trying to implement, what I've been doing, this segregation I've been doing, past 4 years, and my kachra is almost not there. So
Wow.
I was wondering, like there are so many families living around me, and I was just calculating, like 10 times plus 20 times plus ye hoga jo mere ghar mein ho raha hai, then wouldn't it be wonderful? But then I tried to like hesitatingly approach people, but it wasn't very well done. Probably I'm not good at communicating or convincing people. So I think somebody, Vishesh, I think already asked that too. So I was like, should we like, I don't know, how does it work? Because I was thinking like, should I hold a presentation for all of them showing literally like what I do? Or how have you gone about it? Because there are a lot of people that are they're very proud about using so much plastic and like also throwing it right next to our open plot. So yeah, so is there a way where I can
Right.
because I don't want to educate them, then it feels more like it creates
Preachy.
that, yeah. So maybe like tell them very politely, or I don't know, it's not working. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Bhavani, firstly, I'd like to say kudos to whatever you're doing. I think that's incredible. And the fact that you want to influence people, that's also massive, right? Um, and please don't doubt your presentation or educational skills. I don't think we do ourselves a favor when we do that and say that to ourselves, right? So I'd just like to share a couple of things that we have learned along the journey, which is that inspiring people, talking about how it helped you, talking about how it helped your personal health is a massive impact. Right, so even like say for example something as small as sustainable menstruation for menstruators, no better time to try a pad or a cup than during the lockdown, because people were at home, they were in their comfort zone. Not all of them, some of them. So good to like sort of engage with that. Second is I feel like hands-on activities, demonstrating, really curating something around for that audience, I think really helps. So putting in that effort. So say for example, if you just want to say that, hey, I just want to demonstrate how I compost at home. It would be lovely if you all came. This is the time, and this is the place and all of that. And if people gather and you show that this can be done using this, and this is what I do, and leave a lot of space for questions, I feel like that really engages people as well. But I think, Bhavani, what's also really important is to understand where your energy is going, right? Is it going in a space where you're hitting your head against a wall? Or is it going in a place where you're making a little bit of a headway? So even starting a tiny WhatsApp group with one or two people in your community or who are interested, I think that's a massive win. um, but it will take time. It will take time. It's not going to happen very easily. And if that person is throwing plastic near the pond, I don't think that's cool. Maybe, I don't know, putting up a dustbin close by would be great. But insulting doesn't work. A couple of other things that I also want to sort of share very quickly, is in getting people to say do a waste audit will also probably really help, right? And maybe watching documentaries together, reading some books, that could also be good. What I realize is gifting things to people, which could help them think about it a little more. Say for example, I use natural dishwash that my friends got me from Audible. And friends who come and stay at home, when they use it, they're like, yeah, my hands are so nice. They don't feel scratchy or itchy, or they don't feel nazuk as much. So that really, like, getting that personal experience and seeing those health benefits, I think really motivates people to start doing that. For someone to grow their own food, it's a massive step. So yeah, I remember ever since I started using a menstrual cup, every menstruator that I knew, I'm like, birthday menstrual cup, shadi hai menstrual cup. So I just went on that spree. For Rakhi, I gave that gift. As a wedding gift, we gave a kit of like bamboo brush, a straw, a metal straw, and like a small note and all of that. So yeah, I think gifting, there's small ways how we can sort of nudge people. Maybe as a Diwali gift, if you celebrate and believe in Diwali, I think a good Diwali gift could also be that. Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing in the interest of time. We are at 6:58 and this session is only till 7. And I know everyone hates that is happening, but maybe we can just take 5 more minutes. So we can take one more question, one or two more questions, and then everyone can, if Shipra, if you're happy to share your email ID, then people can connect over email with you. So you can do that in the chat. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, over to Ishta.
Okay, thank you. Shipra, so I think there was a question from Suparna. I don't know if he wants to.
His audio is not okay, so you'll have to say it.
Correct. He said that. He said, are there any courses by, I can't find the exact question, but it was, are there any courses that Scrap is running?
He asked two questions. Are there any courses that Scrap is running? And then his follow-up was, is there any course on zero waste management other than Scrap that people can learn?
Right. So yes, we do offer one and a half hour workshops on various topics, be it beginner's guide to zero waste living, advanced zero waste living, how to inspire, engage people, how to make your own bioenzymes, how to compost at home. We offer all of these workshops on a platform. You can follow us. I'm really new to all this, so um, yeah. So I've just like shared the Instagram handle. It's also the Facebook page, scrap.zero waste. A lot of our workshop information starts coming there, so you can see that. In terms of a course, it depends, Saparna, on what you're looking for. Are you looking for a course that teaches you, or are you looking for a course to get a broad overview? Because I think those are two different things. So if you can clarify that on chat, that would be really useful. Um, I don't mean to market or advertise, but we have this workshop coming up on this Saturday from 5 to 6:30, and lots of people have found it to be really, really useful. We have covered some aspects of it today. Right, for yourself, then I would say uh, I'll be happy to share a couple of resources and books. Watch the movie Kiss the Ground on Netflix. See the documentary Story of Stuff on YouTube. Read this amazing book called Ishmael. It changed my life. Right, read the Story of Stuff as well. I think all of these resources can be very, very useful. Thanks, Manyata.
But
I didn't catch the name of the book. Can you tell me again?
Yes.
Okay.
Although this is a more deep book, please read it when you have some mind space. Ishmael.
Okay. There, I think the question that you were intrigued and wanted to answer, I'm sending it to you privately. It was the second question in this.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Aneep.
This was by, I think, Aneep. Aneep, thank you for asking these two questions. Very interesting. So, when we talk about people who are not educated or aware how big a problem of waste and waste disposal, how do you suggest to approach them? So, Aneep, I think education, especially in our conventional sense, has not done much for people to be smart about the problem of waste, right? Or to even care about the problem of waste. So I would sort of flip it and talk about, like, what do you do when people who have a lot of impact are not even understanding the problem? I would still say, like, where we failed at the university project that I spoke about, we were on a rented campus, right? So which is why I think one of the more biggest reasons why we failed was an engineering college that used to also use the same canteen as us, and everyone was educated, but no one read the sign and threw their waste in the food waste bin or in the dry waste bin, right? I think one of the ways to do that is to start with really small steps. So, say for example, instead of tackling this entire thing of segregating your waste, can we look at just collecting paper cups? Only collect paper cups and then send them for recycling, or only tackle the problem of food waste. Whatever waste is left over, can we go and give that to an underprivileged community? So I feel like once those efforts start to take some shape and you're able to talk about it in a positive way, then people start seeing that, oh, my efforts make sense. So so that's something I would suggest, which is to find alternate ways where stakeholder engagement is slightly low, and then talking about how that has made an impact will then start slowly getting a buy-in from people. But I cannot stress enough as to how important it is to really not talk about it in a doom and gloom way, but to talk about it in a positive way, and also like give positive reinforcement. If someone says, hey, I didn't carry a plastic bag. Oh, but you carry a plastic bag every other day. So that doesn't help, right? Saying and appreciating and giving positive reinforcement for any small step that someone's taken is massive. We are ultimately human beings who thrive on acknowledgement and appreciation. So feeding that can be a really important step in the journey.
Yes. Hi, Shipra. This is Anip here.
Yes, Anip.
So yes, so I was kind of expecting an answer where, so when the people do not, so when it is, there will be a very steep learning curve for people to understand what kind of social and environmental havoc this waste that they are generating is wrecking on the everything right around us.
Right.
So then, is there any other perspective also that we can provide, that how is it going to benefit you? Maybe it can be their household economics, or if there is any intervention other than the social problem that this waste creates or the environmental problem, and if there is any this like any such intervention that you would have used for the people who have access to all the means of creating waste, but who then do not have an iota of understanding of why is the waste actually a problem. So
Right.
yeah,
Um,
that
Great. So, Anip, I think talking about health, and I think that's something we touched upon in another answer before this. I think touching upon the aspect of health really speaks to a lot of people in our experience. So, just like if you just Google the word microplastics and and understand what it causes, it is actually that a study has shown that on an average, a person globally is consuming a credit card sized worth of plastic every week, because there are tiny plastics in the air we breathe, in the water we drink, and in the food that we eat, right? So I think like talking in aspects of health and how responsible waste management and disposal can really help manage that problem, I think really helps. So be it natural cleaners, be it growing your own food, I think all of these things have their health repercussions, personal repercussions, apart from just emotional and mental health, positive mental and emotional health impacts as well. So I feel like I think physical health is something that we can focus on, and there's so much on the internet on that as well. But
Thank
I would like to caution, sorry, very quickly, is that if you don't have a personal experience of that, please do that yourself and then breathe. So be it bioenzymes, be it growing your own food, if you're not doing it yourself, I think it makes it really hard to go ahead and do that for someone else. Manita, sorry, but very quickly, he had asked that I'm a banya, and why did I mention that? I mentioned that in the context of how how incredibly conjuice I felt my family was, and because of the background that we come with, that we need to be frugal, that we need to be saving all our resources, including money. I come from a household where that is practiced a lot, and I used to not value it so much. In fact, I used to look at it with a little bit of disdain. But now, as a 30-year-old, I feel like that's something that I really value.
Oh,
thank
absolutely. Thank you so much, Shipra. But I just asked this question because I, I personally don't feel that it has anything to do with the community that we come from, and it is this the families that we are from. And so let us say that there are 30 people who are looking up to you right now in a room, and we have been told stories from eons that certain community has been doing certain things in a certain way, right? And if we keep telling these stories in the coming future also, I think these stereotypes are just going to keep on like moving to the coming generations also.
So,
So I
in the
just
interest of time, I'm sorry to
yes,
cut you,
okay,
Anip, but this can
yeah,
get
sure,
into a
ma'am.
very different direction, this
Okay,
conversation, and that's not the purpose of this space. So, just for that, I'm cutting you short. I'm very sorry about this. Also, in the interest of time, it's 7 past 7 now, and we also do have a hangout space after this, which is already opened. If you want to meet other participants, and then we have a workshop at 8. So I think everyone needs to, maybe some people might want to take a breather before that, and that's the only reason why. Thank you, Shipra. It was lovely engaging with you.